welcome to this Intelligent Briefing. I'm Jess Abel, Director of Strategic Content at Linchpin Media. In this edition of our Deep Dive series, I'm speaking with Peter George, Managing Director at Amazon Payment Services, who tells us about the transformation that the payment services industry has undergone and highlights how the company is providing simple, trusted and convenient payment solutions that meet the demands of modern consumers. Well, good morning and thank you for joining me, Peter. Could you just first of all introduce yourself to our viewers, please?
Sure. So thanks for having me here, first of all, and I do appreciate the time that you're making out to kind of talk with me as well. My name is Peter George. I've been with Amazon for nearly 11 years now. I was with the India team as the first employee in India for Amazon in India, and worked over there in India across 3 different marketplaces. And about 3 months ago, I moved over to Dubai to run the Amazon payments business for the Middle East and North Africa. So that's my current charter. I'm based in Dubai. I'm of Indian origin. Been in Amazon, like I said, 10 plus years. Prior to this, with Microsoft, with Nokia, and with Group Danone in India. And I'm loving my role over here at the moment, and it's a fun space and a fun time to be at in Dubai.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. So, can you tell us, how has the payment services industry transformed and what has caused that transformation?
If I were to perhaps take a step back and talk to you about this, the primary the change that's actually happening in the environment is, if you were to perhaps look back, say even 5 years or 10 years as a horizon of sorts, you would see the advent of digital payments as being the primary mover over here. People are moving away from offline to digital, and I think it is to be complimented for the governments over here as well. With regards to the visionary and the thought process, with regards to the vision and the thought process that they had in foretelling the manner in which commerce was changing from being offline driven alone to a lot more in the online medium. And with that in mind, as if I were to look at it as how these governments put regulations and systems in place that enabled and fostered the environment as such for digital payments to be more acceptable. And with if I were to take the Middle East as a region and as such, consumers over here are far more savvy to accept and adopt these new forms of payments. And with that in mind is also the reason why you have a lot of startups in this region as well that are actually looking at fintech in a much greater degree. So digital payments is the root cause, and a very good root cause, if I were to say it so, for this entire transformation. And the move away from offline to online forms of commerce and digital payments is pretty much the driver over here. Even at Amazon Payment Services, we were formerly called Payfort when we started over here in the region in 2013. We've been at the forefront of a number of innovations. We were the first to bring about things like installments and payments in forms of installments as well. But the point that I'm trying to get at over here is that we've seen the evolution of digital payments in this region. I think, like I said a little earlier, it is to be complimented of the governments over here for their visionary thought process and fostering the environment for that to actually happen in this region. So that in a nutshell would actually be it, Jess. In digital payments on the uptick, and consumers and merchants and industries adopting the same process as well.
What about customer experience and expectations then? How has this transformation impacted customer expectations,
Sure.
both in terms of customer experience and also for providing robust security?
I have to quote our founder, Jeff Bezos, on this, right? And one of his favorite quotes, and something that I think he brought it up in the 2018 shareholder letter, is an interesting comment that I kind of refer back to a lot personally. He made this comment that said, customers are divinely discontent and they're never static. And they always have more and more demands of the stakeholders that they work with, which is exactly the philosophy which Amazon and Amazon Payment Services is built out on. The very word that customers are divinely discontent gives us the impetus as to what we should be doing for our customers. what are customers looking for in the payment space, right? If I were to look at it and take a step back again and assess what customer requirements are in this particular space, I look at it as threefold. One is security, seamless experience, and convenience of it all. If I look at security, payments is, and that too in a faceless environment, in which is what the digital payment space is all about. Trust is a cornerstone of digital payments. Without trust, you really don't have digital commerce that would take place at all. And if that is a cornerstone of digital payment, then customers have to trust the environment in which they're transacting, so that their private credentials, their information is actually, and their personal data is actually kept secure and tight with the entity that they're engaging with. The second, of course, is seamless. This goes back to the divine discontent part of things, is that if I go through an experience of shopping today online, the next time I go around, I want it to be even better than what I went through the first time around, right? And so customers go through this experience of demanding more in terms of what they want from the merchants and transactions that they engage with. It has to be as seamless as possible so that the user experience actually goes up a notch every time they engage. And the last one is, of course, convenience. Do they have the plethora of experiences that they actually want to engage with? Do they have the number of payment options that they have? It's not just Visa and MasterCard anymore. Do they have QR codes? Do they have buy now and pay later? Do they have installments and so on? These are manners in which customers would actually end up needing more from us. And that's the matter of convenience that one would talk of. So in a nutshell, if I were to look at customers being divinely discontent, these are the three factors that pivot all our decision making over here: secure, seamless, and convenient experiences.
So how do merchants need to respond in order to keep pace with these changing expectations?
Merchants have a, I actually would actually ask merchants to perhaps even take a page from what Amazon's up to. And this is not to brag about it. The philosophy with which Amazon and Amazon Payment Services is built is purely on customer obsession. It's our number one leadership principle, and we have leadership principles that we talk about over here. But our number one leadership principle is customer obsession. We are in this business only because our customers need us, and we hope to kind of keep innovating in the manner in which customers need us to innovate as well. If the day we stop innovating is the day we all die, or the day the company closes down. If I would perhaps take that as a thread from what Amazon has done, and if Amazon could be seen as a reasonably successful company in the recent past, I would perhaps take that as being the number one pivot for a merchant to perhaps think about. How obsessed are you with your customers? How much do you know your customers? How much do you spend time understanding what your customers' needs are? And focusing on the customer's benefits and experience should be the number one priority for any merchant that actually wants to kind of make a change in the ecosystem. More than making a change as well, I think it's a need of the hour. If a merchant wants to differentiate himself or itself from one or to another, if it's a similar suite of products that a merchant is offering, then the differentiation factor becomes customer experience, and how one actually can up the game on that one will perhaps hold water for the merchant, not just in growth, but also perhaps even sustainability. In sustaining itself as an entity, as a growing entity, it would need to kind of keep pivoting on customer experience. So keeping a close eye on what the customer's requirements are, the changing trends of customer patterns, what are the customers looking for, what data points are customers kind of sharing back. Those insights basically are what drive the merchant's behaviors, have to drive what merchant behaviors are. And we at Amazon Payment Services keep a very close eye on this one for sure. My team and I actually engage with customers on a daily basis. Our conversations with them are purely around understanding how we can do better than what we have already done. And this is why I said that the mentality over here is that of divine discontent. Our customers are divinely discontent. And how do we kind of keep upping the game on our own current game is what will keep us in the play for the long term. So APS is completely doing the same thing as well over here.
We already mentioned the importance of security, and we know that trust is a key differentiator for modern consumers. So how can merchants and businesses best manage risk and establish that trust with their end users?
It's a very pertinent question, and unfortunately, what happens with commerce as such is that when you move away from physical commerce to digital commerce, one of the flip sides of digital commerce is transactions become faceless. If you and I were to transact across the web, you would not see me, I would not see you, and you have to trust me to do a good enough job of whatever it is that you are paying me for. And the side effect of this faceless transaction is also the effect of a rise of a number of fraudulent and bad actors as well in the same vein. Unfortunately, this is something that's a part and parcel of this space. As much as we would love not to have them around, they will certainly be there. Um, Having said that, my team and I actually, my team presented a few data points back to me, which were quite startling and very worrying as well. For example, about 48%, when we assessed our customers pre and post COVID, for example, there's a rise of nearly 48% amongst customers of sharing the information online because they're kind of worrying about who's going to get my information, what are they going to do with that bit of information. Close to 65% of customers that we interviewed spoke to us and told us that they would abandon shopping with that merchant if he or she were targeted by a fraudulent attack. All this actually ends up resulting in the need for a merchant to up his game or up its game when it comes to fraudulent actors and managing fraudulent actors. And how does one go about doing this? Now, there are multiple ways to do this. One, of course, is having a very robust fraud detection system in place. First up, of course, having policies around fraud, and you got to think about policies around what's fraud, how do you differentiate a good actor versus a bad actor, a good customer versus a bad customer, and so on and so forth. The second is the fact about the fraud prevention solutions that we're talking about. The third is using machine learning to try and understand what constitutes good behavior versus what constitutes bad behavior. And again, figuring out how machine learning can perhaps be of help over there as well. And then round-the-clock provision of vigilance and audit. That's something else that merchants are supposed to invest in as well. Now, all this might sound extremely onerous and even ominous for a merchant who may be kind of stepping to the space altogether. And that's the reason why we have companies like Amazon Payment Services stepping to provide the entire suite of such services that I just spoke about to a merchant. The merchant doesn't have to worry about any of these factors anymore if it decides to engage with Amazon Payment Services, because our processes are built to kind of keep an eye on what we need to kind of keep improving on with regards to robustness, security, and so on and so forth.
How does access to business insights provide a competitive edge and retain customers?
Like I said a little earlier, if one were to level out if one were to put two merchants in front of a customer, and you have the same assortment of products between the two merchants, then certainly the one that actually provides the greater customer experience might end up winning. Now, if a merchant might win once, how does a merchant keep winning again and again? And that's on the basis of knowing your customer and the data that the customer provides and working with that data. So the currency over here in commerce for a merchant at least is data. If one were to look at data as being the currency over here, how well do you know your customer? How well do you know what the customer's insights are? What's the customer telling you with the manner in which he or she shops? What's the customer looking for? What trends can you glean from the data that the customer is providing you, indirectly or directly as well? So keeping a very close eye on data is basically what differentiates a good merchant versus perhaps a merchant who may have a one-off sale and then be done with it altogether. That insight is basically what would actually separate one from the other, in my opinion. Like I just said a little earlier, if I were to put two merchants in front of you, yes, for sure, one might get a win in terms of one transaction, but the other might actually be the one that gleans and uses data to kind of do better. Once again, and not to toot my own horn on my company's horn, Amazon Payment Services does provide this insight to merchants free of cost. We do provide our merchants and our customers all the information they need to kind of get better at what they're trying to do with their customers. My team's job is very simple. We are interested in providing the best and the most robust form of payment processing for our merchant customers, and to help them do better is basically what keeps us in our business as well. So if I were to provide them with information, or if they need information from me to do better, that's my job to provide it to them, and that's what we do free of cost.
Which payment solutions technology should businesses consider as part of their long-term strategy to ensure they're providing that great customer experience and positive business outcomes?
I perhaps think payment solutions have to be taken up um, for their own merits, for lack of other words. Merchants have unique requirements and unique needs, and depending on whatever their needs are, we have payment solution providers that would actually end up being available for merchants as well. I personally like to think that Amazon Payment Services provides the plethora of services that any merchant would need. Like I mentioned a little earlier, we are not new to the region. We are a very old entity in this region. We have been known for being forerunners when it comes to innovation and technology. And we now have the Amazon branding on top of it as well, which brings with it the entire impetus of Amazon Global, and the know-how that we have from Amazon Global as well. And the marriage of both, the local awareness and the local knowledge with that of Amazon's experience and expertise from all over the world, is basically what we are providing as Amazon Payment Services for the merchants in the region. If I were to choose one payment service processor in the region, it certainly would be us. I would certainly think that the gamut of experiences that we provide, or the gamut of services that we provide, would certainly be one of super use to a merchant for sure.
Why is scalability so important for organizations today, particularly? And how does Amazon Payment Services enable this through its solutions?
Sure. So scalability is really, really important, because one would have never thought of, if I were to ask you to think back about the time before COVID, and if we weren't as prepared for scale, then we would have perhaps lost out on an opportunity to serve our customers if I were a merchant, right? So scalability is one that's needed to kind of keep ourselves ahead of whatever spikes and potential spikes that we may end up seeing. If I were to look at examples back in India, or even in the region over here, if I were to consider companies like Talabat, which are in the food delivery services over here, if they hadn't scaled, they would have really lost out on an opportunity in delivering food across to consumers who are trying to order food home. They couldn't step out, they couldn't go to grocery stores, and so on and so forth. So scalability becomes super important for merchants if they really want to think about becoming not just a going business, but also a growing business as well. And that's pretty much what I would actually take examples from companies I see around in the ecosystem. There's Jahez in Saudi Arabia, there's Talabat over here, which are classic examples of companies which have actually scaled and kept to the times of scaling as well. And if any merchant really wants to up his game, scalability has to be something that you have to kind of consider. You also then have to partner with entities that actually help you scale as well. Companies like Amazon Payment Services or Amazon Web Services are classic examples of companies that help you scale and help you provide scale as well as you kind of grow your business. And it's not a one size fit all. We kind of have a manner in which we kind of, it's almost like an elastic manner in which AWS, for example, has something called Elastic Services. And that's something that we provide over here as well. As you scale and grow, we will grow along with you. And you would never have a downtime or a problem in any way whatsoever accordingly.
Well, that brings me to my final question then. How does Amazon Payment Services set itself apart from others in this market? And why should businesses consider you as a strategic partner?
Like I mentioned a little earlier, Jess, we were called Payfort until about a year ago. Payfort was formed as a part of the Soup Group of companies in 2013 as one of the first payment processing companies in the region. We were acquired by Amazon in 2017 when Amazon acquired Soup and entered the region. About a year ago is when we rebranded ourselves from Payfort to Amazon Payment Services. Now, the rebranding activity was rather symbolic from the perspective of fact that not only were we now calling ourselves Amazon Payment Services and then let go of the old brand Payfort, but we were also bringing in a lot of synergies as well. Payfort stood for a lot of local expertise and local awareness and local knowledge, while Amazon stands for the global brand that it is. And what we now are providing in the region is a convenience, is literally a synergy or the marriage of both, in fact. Local awareness and global know-how, and bringing all that in one platter, literally a platter of sorts to our customers, is basically what Amazon Payment Services stands for. So my job over here and my team's job we are all involved in trying to bring this platter of experiences for our customer. for our merchant customers in this region so that they end up doing better at what they are trying to do in their own businesses. And we hope to kind of grow with them as they grow as well. So our jobs over here is to serve them. And that's exactly what we're trying to do over here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a real pleasure to chat to you today.
Likewise. Thank you again.
Thank you.